You know the origin of why. Day back about 8,000 years ago. You know, when the archaeologists, they excavate the historical site and they discover some vase or container. And after they test, you know, about the substance, in the vase or container, they test and they found out that had the ingredient of wine. So that's why they concluded that, wine were made in the Caucasus about 8,000 years ago. Caucasus right now, just like the country Georgia or Armenia. Yeah. And from Caucasus, spread to Babylon, Iraq, to Cairo, Egypt, to Athens, Greece, to Roma, to Rome, Italy, yeah, and all over the world, yeah. And long time ago, the people they made wine by grape, yeah. They put the grape, into the container, and they use just like something to destroy the grape, to get the juice out of the grape, and they just you know put the lid on of the container, and let the grape fermented about maybe a month. Yeah, the wine just made like that. And in the ancient time, because the wine difficult to make, so they the wine only for the noble, just like the king or general or high ranking officer or the rich powerful people. Yeah, after the people they knew how to make the wine easier and abundant, so the normal people they could buy, and you know they could buy the wine and they could drink the wine, the normal people, yeah. And the wine, in ancient time, often used for ceremony, ritual, or if you watch many movies, you see after the king or the general they defeated, the the enemy, they celebrate, to just like to enjoy wine, you know. Yeah, yeah. Why, right now, for the birthday party, for the reunion party, or for the sometimes you meet the stranger, you drink beer, drink wine, or sometimes you meet your family, you drink wine, yeah. Or you stay home, you don't know what to do, you drink wine, yeah. Many people, they assume that, wine only made by grapes. No, in East Asia like Vietnam, Korea, Japan, China, you know, they knew how to make wine by sweet rice. Yeah, just like they put, the sweet rice in the container, they boil, and after that they add the sugar, they add some ingredient, and they put the lid on the container and let the rice fermented maybe about few weeks. Yeah, and they take out the rice, they feed the pig or the poultry, the chicken or the wool. Yeah, just like farm. Yeah, and the wine, they sell, they sell to the market. You guys watching this video, you guys know about the history of the wine. Please support my YouTube channel. Bye bye.
That we talked about, or you can stabilize the brew with potassium sorbate and metabisulfite, or pasteurize it. This will halt any possible fermentation, allowing you to use fermentable sugar. If you stabilize the brew, you can use any fermentable sugar, so that's helpful for this case. Once you back sweeten to the level that you want, you are going to actually take and put it into a keg and force carbonate it. Now, I have a whole video on that. I'll link to it below. So now let's go back to our wine. You should see the yeast flocculate to the bottom and the bubbling stop. You're good to rack at this point, so go ahead and move it to a new container with your auto siphon and tubing. You can then let it set for a little bit longer, and it might start clearing up. If you want your brew to be clear, you're going to want to either let it set for a really long time, cold crash it, which means to put it into a cold chamber, or use a wine clarifier like any option you see here. If you want the brew to be sweeter, you're going to need to stabilize with that potassium sorbate and metabisulfite, or pasteurize it. Do not add fermentable sugar to this brew while the yeast are still active. It will just start fermenting again. Once you've added the sugar and sweetened it to your liking, make sure the yeast aren't going to activate again by letting it set for a few days. Then go ahead and bottle it into any bottle that you can get and cap and cork them. For the mead, you should also see a similar process. The yeast flocculate to the bottom. There's sediment that's collected. Because we used canned pears, there's a lot of leftover sediment that you'll see. You want to rack the brew into a new container and let it set for a while longer. If you want it to be sweeter, you're going to stabilize with potassium sorbate and metabisulfite, or pasteurize, and then add your sweetener of choice. I would back sweeten this brew specifically with honey to pronounce that flavor. Once you've made sure this brew isn't going to ferment anymore, go ahead and bottle it. Here's some recommendations for this brew. I would take a gravity reading before fermentation starts, after it's done, and after you back sweeten to know what the gravity readings are. When racking, I would use a fine mesh strainer to get any of those pear chunks out of the final product. If you want these brews to be clear, you're going to need to let them set for a really long time, cold crash, or use any wine clarifier like you see on screen. And to bottle these brews, you're going to need an auto siphon and bottling wand to move each into bottles. You will then need to cap and cork into those prospective bottles and label them so you don't get them confused with all your other homebrew. You can find links to all of these equipment things below. Now that we've learned how to do all this, let's go to the tasting. And here we are for the tasting. I'm super excited to share these. Gonna go ahead and spoil. Canned pears are different than fresh pears. We're gonna talk about that. So before you commenters go down below and talk about this recipe, we're gonna talk about the good and the bad. Let's go ahead and start with the one that required the least amount of age. We're gonna go ahead and taste the cider first. So it's right here. This one was done pretty quick, bottle carbonated. Let's go ahead and check it out, see if it has carbonated correctly. Always a good sign when there's a, because that means that there's CO2, and I see my carbonation. Let's go and pour it. yeah, we're carbonated. Looking pretty dang good, actually. Not the clearest brew, but that is okay. Of course, we have back sweetened with non-fermentable sugar so that we could safely do this and put our priming sugar in. Of course, if you want to remember, figure out how I made this, go back to the beginning of the video. What does this taste like though? We are not super, I mean, we're between 5 and 7% ABV. Oh yeah, wow. So the pear flavor, pear character in here feels, without spoiling, a little more true than I thought it would compared to some of these other ones. It's light, refreshing, and crisp. There's sweetness coming from the erythritol, which is very helpful. That carbonation is just makes it refreshing, of course. It definitely has a solid pear side. Now, it's not like super fresh pear. It is kind of like a canned pear, honestly, kind of taste to it. Sometimes if you get a nice ripe pear, it'll have a better freshness side to it. So that is one thing that's helpful here, or that I wish I had more of. Which, if you are making this and you have access to things like citric acid or even malic acid, those two would like pinched just a little bit into this recipe would really brighten it up. It's pretty mellow, but it's pretty good. Actually, I'm very pleased with this. This pear cider is super crushable, and again, we'll talk about the good and the bad here in a second. But for a quick turnaround, that's really not a bad thing at all. Now let's go ahead and open up these others. I should also mention these are bottled. We're at 3 months since I've made them. You can notice that they're not all clear. This is the wine, not super clear. This is the mead, not super clear. The cider is not really super clear either, but that happens sometimes with bottle carbonation. The wine and mead are pretty young comparatively to where they could be. Most of the time, you're gonna age wine or mead a little bit longer. So, let's now get over to our wine. So the wine is obviously sugar-based, regular old table sugar-based. I do understand that the pears I used were in 100% juice, so they had some sugars from that, of course. I left that juice in because it had some of that pear flavor, and I really wanted that, honestly. That does impact the ultimate taste of these. Here's our wine. You can already see in the bottle. Again, not super clear. So this is sitting at roughly about 9% ABV based off of our gravity readings and all of that. Definitely has a very sugary, like table sugary aroma. Not a ton of pear. I mean, a little bit of like pear in there, but it's definitely not bright, as I mentioned before. Here we go. Yeah, okay, sugary, table sugary, kind of sweetness. A little bit of that pear taste coming through, but it's very mellow, honestly. I feel like it's been fermented on pretty heavily. It does still have a little bit of burn, meaning there's like heat from alcohol. 3 months, again, is not a long time for a wine, even if it's 9%. Still not a long time. This is very, it doesn't have a lot of tannin, which is something that means like it clings around in your mouth. If you think about red wine has a lot of tannin. You drink it and it pulls moisture out and does a lot. This does not have a lot of tannin to it. It's pretty juice-esque. It is enjoyable though. It's just not like the best pear flavor I've ever had or want. Honestly, it's kind of lacking in brightness, and that's what I think it really needs. There's not a lot of acidity here to really help it out. I did not back sweeten this one. You have the option to back sweeten your wine. If you stabilize it, you can go back and add more table sugar, and that will bring the sweetness up. This has enough perceived sweetness to me to be okay. Maybe some more sugar would have helped with that, but I'm also okay with where it's at. So the final gravity for this one was 1.000. We did not back sweeten, and we'll talk about that more. It's not bad. Maybe with some more time, it'll be better. Again, big problem is the quality of pear. And our last one, this is the mead. You can see it's the most hazy of all of them. Most of the time, mead needs lots of time to clear, meaning to lose this cloudy mess. And we're only about 3 months in. This is very young, honestly, for mead. 3 months is not a ton of time, so we're gonna have some problems, but let's talk about them. Here it is. Definitely more, this wine had sugary aroma from table sugar. This definitely is floral honey side, part because we fermented with honey in the primary, but also we came back and back sweetened. So this thing was stabilized with potassium sorbate and metabisulfite, and then we added about a quarter pound of honey to be able to bring that sweetness back up and that sugary side that we want. This one's definitely bigger because of the honey. It kind of pushes out the viscosity, makes it feel bigger. That's just what honey does. It's a thick substance. There is the haziness could also be attributed there. A little bit of heat from alcohol. We are setting at about 13% ABV. It is much sweeter though. It's honestly not as juicy air quotes, around as the wine was. It is pretty good though. It doesn't have a lot of tannin. It does have like that viscosity, but not necessarily good tannin. Doesn't have a lot of bright pear acidity that we might want, even though pear is a pretty mellow fruit in my opinion. It's not bad. I think when there's some things to fix these recipes, the base value of it is like level 1. So what we've created here, in my opinion, is level 1 of this pear recipe. And this is using arguably the cheapest quality pear, canned pear you can find. Obviously you go to nicer places, canned pears might be canned fresh for you, or they could be just nicer quality. This is a little bit lower quality, that's okay, but it's not bad. Let's talk about the good side of this specific canned version. Pretty cheap for pears. I would say that you can get a lot of pear flavor, pear in general, for a cheaper amount. There is some sugar from the pear juice, so that raises your gravity if you would like to do, really the wine or the cider side. The mead is gonna need a lot of gravity from the honey. Overall, it's a quick turnaround. That's another pro of this. These really aren't too bad for 3 months old. They do need a little more time, at least for the wine and the mead. Now the cons. Canned pears, pureeing, I lost about half of my overall gallon of brew for each one to sediment. So I lost quite a bit of this brew. That's just something that comes with all of the stuff that's in the pears. It would have been impossible to rack and move all of that into the new container without really just making the cloudiness even more difficult. There's not a lot of brightness from this pear, and that's just a canned pear problem. Probably not the nicest pears. So you can fix that with adjusting things with some acid balance. Lemon juice could maybe help out a little bit with citric acid. That can be fixed, sort of. And the last one is, it definitely is appearing as, with specifically the lowest quality canned fruit I found, it's appearing as not, I don't want to say not natural, not fresh pear. And I kind of want a more fresh pear presence. It's fun to say. Overall, you have options. If you're looking at this recipe going, I don't want to use canned pears, that's fine, don't use canned pears. Go and buy real pears, chop them up, and I'm gonna tell you the secret to making this recipe even better. I didn't use it in this because I used canned pears, but there's a little thing called pectic enzyme. You won't get it on or in your grocery store, but you will get it at a brew shop, Amazon, somewhere like that. Pectic enzyme breaks down fruit skins and gets more juice out of them. Here's what you do. You go and buy, 3 pounds of pears, chop them up, put some pectic enzyme on top and let that set for about a day or two. That will help break down the fruit skins, which will release more juice, getting more flavor out of them. If I had done that with fresh pears, I would have an even better product. Overall, as a level 1 brewing sort, this is pretty good. But fresh fruit is the next level to take this up. And of course, I'll put some recipes below if you would like fresh fruit recipes and some ways to fix these things. But I have enjoyed this. I hope you have enjoyed this. And this has been a cider, a wine, and a mead. I mostly make mead, but I think I've got the wine and cider thing down as well. I have lots of videos on the channel if you would like to dive deeper, and I hope that you will come back for more. If you enjoyed this, leave a like. If you would like to see another canned or fruit option, maybe next one I'll do is blackberry cider and wine and mead, or some other sort. Let me know below. I am super glad that you've been here, and I hope to see you again. Cheers.